Good evening and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances. And it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise and accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts that you present here tonight. We as a board must consider the five following conditions, and they're listed here for you. Number one, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the variance. Number two, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. Number three, whether the variance is substantial. Number four, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you will be asked to go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record and then proceed to tell us why you need the variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are three ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow, or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have some adjournments. The first case to be adjourned is case number 18135, Nicholas Santoro. Is anybody here for that case? That has been adjourned to May 14th. The next case is case 18109, Walter Sonoza. Anyone here for that case? That case has been adjourned to June 11th. And we have case number 18136, CNS Builders. Mr. Tramarko?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tramarko. I represent CNS Builders. I know there's been a request for an adjournment. In the interest of transparency, we'll consent to the adjournment. I believe we spoke about May 14th. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. And case 18136, CNS Builders, that has been adjourned to May 14th. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18133, Paula Goldberg, 22 Ashley Circle, Comac, the location of the property, the south side of Ashley Circle, 650 feet south of Scarlet Drive. The property is zoned R6. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit railing to be more than 3 feet high and to permit a deck to be more than 10 feet from a dwelling.
Okay, wait a minute, let me just get this passed, let this pass.
Good evening. Did you have your mailings, and
I do, yeah.
could you give them to Mr. Donadio,
Boy,
please?
you really have a mess. Here, you want this now? Cute.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paula.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Paula Goldberg, 22 Ashley Circle in Comac, and I'm here for a variance, two variances. One is to build my deck more than 10 feet away from the house, and the second one is to make the railing a little higher than 3 feet. The fence, rather.
I'm sorry?
The fence around the deck.
Right, the railing, the safety railing around the
Right,
fence.
yeah.
Okay. All right, does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning? No. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to be heard on this application? No. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case on the agenda, case number 18134, Alexander Caro, 132 Oakside Drive, Smithtown, the location of the property, the east side of Oakside Drive, 200 feet north of Riverview Terrace. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to permit an accessory structure in the required side yard and to reduce the minimum side yard from 24 feet to 12 feet. Reduce the minimum total side yards from 60 feet to 56 feet for an existing 117 square foot shed with a 28 square foot covered porch. Permit structures within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25% for an existing 117 square foot shed, a patio and fence. Permit structures within 100 feet of wetlands for the existing fence.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tramarko. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. I was just bragging to my client how you put everything up on the screen. I guess I was wrong. Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
My
I was
apologies,
right.
that's the last case.
Okay. In any event, I'd like to bring to the board's attention that we've gotten all of the DEC permits with respect to this application. They've all been approved. I believe LWRP has given their approval. So now we need to come to your board. I know you're familiar with the area of Oakside Drive. On one side of Oakside Drive, it goes up. On our side, unfortunately, it goes down, and it really is a very steep incline, as you can see from the survey and the elevation shown on that survey. So that anything you really do there is going to involve steep slopes. In addition, we have a shed which we need a side yard variance for. One of the good things about it is, since it's down a hill rather than up a hill, all of these items that we're requesting this board to approve really has no effect on any of the neighbors because the slope actually goes down to the river. Now, my client would like to also build a swimming pool on the property, and you can see that there were some retaining walls that were done, all of which have been approved by various other departments. So we don't think it would have a change in, or an undesirable change in the character of the area. It is a beautiful area of Smithtown, bordering on the river, but the topography is such that you need retaining walls, you need all kinds of man-made supplements in order to enjoy the property. It's rather a very steep slope, and even if you look at the grading, I guess you really have to be a professional to understand how slopey, if for lack of a better word, it is. So most of that property is really not usable. So in order to make it usable, my client has to come to this board. So whether the benefit could be sought can be achieved by some other feasible method for the applicant to pursue. No, this is the property, this is where it is. God made the property a very sloping area, but a beautiful area. So we would like to enhance the property with the improvements we've asked the board to approve. Whether the requested variance is substantial, well, one might read it, but if you know the property and the area, it's not substantial. It's the only way you can develop this property and make it into what it really should be. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse impact on the environment, well, we already went to the DEC. The DEC didn't see a problem with it. So hopefully this board will not see a problem either. Was the difficulty self-created? Some of the stuff we did in order to control erosion, but the pool and the other things some of the other things we're asking for are on the drawing board and need your approval. We haven't built them yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning?
Okay. Just to let the board know, two things. Number one, this property is part of a subdivision in the area that required I believe, a waiver request from the planning board, which was granted. Additionally, because of its location to the river, it's within the LWRP boundaries, and I do believe that the town board adopted an LWRP consistency determination. I'm just not aware if there are any conditions in that approval or not.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
Second?
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Mr. Tramarko, we don't have a sequence, so there'll be no action on this
I
tonight.
understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18137, Joanne Daddio, 23 Laurel Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property, the east side of Laurel Drive, 438 feet south of Bayberry Lane. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum total side yards from 34 feet to 32 feet for a proposed 96 square foot addition and a 690 square foot roof over patio.
Is that you? Come on up.
Do you have your affidavits and your... You're Joanne? Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Got it.
What is she doing?
You have to go up to the podium now. Yep. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could I have your name and address, please, for the record?
Joanne Daddio, 23 Laurel Drive.
Okay. And you are here tonight because?
We purchased a home 3 months ago, and the den is like L-shaped, so we want to just even it out. It's a 96 square foot, 8 foot by 12 foot addition, if you will. It does not extend the width of the existing home. So I think, I don't know if it was built with, it's like 16 feet, 4 inches or something on each side. It's not 17 feet on each side.
Okay.
So we don't satisfy the 34-foot combined side requirement.
And you're asking for 32 feet, which is a 2-foot reduction.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Oh, boy.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18138, J&D Long Island Builders, 16 Beechwood Lane, Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Beechwood Lane, 90 feet east of Elder Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the required front yard from 25% to 38%, which is existing.
Good evening.
Evening. Louis Castellano, 2693 Middle Country Road, Lake Grove, New York. I'm sure you visited the site and you realize along Beechwood Lane there is no parking in the street. There's no parking signs up and down the street by the apartments. We built a new home and we installed a driveway with additional parking because it's a family with 4 children. We didn't realize at the time, even with a straight driveway, we would have exceeded the maximum blacktop area. So we thought we were doing the right thing by keeping the cars off the street, and it backfired on us. So here we are.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
No.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18139, Joseph Giordinella, 16 Dorothy Street, Nesconset. The location of the property is the west side of Dorothy Street, 843 feet north of Smithtown Boulevard. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 45 feet to 35 feet, reduce the minimum rear yard from 60 feet to 30 feet, to increase the maximum gross floor area from 25% to 29% for a proposed 1,848 square foot, 2-story, single-family home with 440 square foot garage and a 114 square foot covered porch.
Good evening.
Good evening. Louis Castellano, 2693 Middle Country Road, Lake Grove, New York. I have handed in photos to the board showing similar homes in the area with similar front yards and rear yards. We do not believe the house will change the character of the neighborhood or impact any environment. We have obtained our Board of Health approval based on the 1981 tax map. I believe the FAR is minimal based on the surrounding homes. My client was born and raised in the area, would like to stay there and raise her own family. I'm sure you have visited the site, and you see we pretty much conform to the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you. There's 2 other homes being constructed at the end of that dead end, correct?
It's all 3 sisters, the Olson
Okay.
family. They're building a house there for each daughter.
Okay.
The other two have been permitted already.
Yeah, they've been approved.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Don't put that away.
Power of attorney? Yeah.
That's the applicant. Thank you. The next case on the agenda, case number 18140, Daniel Donahue, 31 Tarleton Lane, Northport. The location of the property, excuse me, the northeast corner of Tarleton Lane and Truscott Path. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the required setback of a 4.5-foot high fence from the top of a retaining wall from 4.5 feet to 0. Increase the combined height of a fence on top of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 9.5 feet.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dan Donahue, 31 Tarleton Lane.
And would you like this gentleman to speak?
Yes,
on
that
your
was
behalf?
correct. Photography permission for him to speak.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Todd O'Connell, architect doing business at 1200 Veterans Highway, Hauppauge, New York, representing Daniel Donahue on his application for a retaining wall. A little bit about this property. If you have visited it, you will notice there's currently a retaining wall that's there on the property. Daniel is he's putting in a new pool. The existing retaining wall is a landscape tie retaining wall. He's looking to replace that retaining wall with a Nicoloc style or a masonry retaining wall. The retaining wall itself is going in the exact same location that it currently is, except for the fact that we are extending it slightly to the northeast, but along the same parallel that the existing wall is. So we don't feel, being that the wall was already there, we don't feel it's going to have, you know, a major impact on the community. You can't see it from the front. We don't see any negative environmental impacts. You know, we need to do this wall over because we're putting in a new pool. So the wall is inevitable, and it's really the only way that we could put a pool in that location is with the with putting in this new wall. So there were really no other choices but to come before this board. As you all know, there are fence requirements around pools, which is what added to some of the height requirements for the fence that we're putting around the pool for safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
Second?
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18141, Richard Lawrence, 27 Three Pond Road, Smithtown. The location of the property, the south side of Three Pond Road, 275 feet east of Thatch Pond Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard to a lawful non-conforming structure from 100 feet to 75 feet for an existing 150-square-foot addition.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Christina Fry, an attorney with offices at 7 Pine Ridge Drive, Smithtown, New York. I'm here today on behalf of the homeowner, Richard Lawrence. Mr. Lawrence has added approximately 150 square feet to the home, and I have shaded that and highlighted it on the survey that's shown on the screen. They essentially squared off a portion of the house to give themselves a little bit more storage in the garage, 40, I believe it was 48 square feet in the garage, and they added a mudroom. And the photo that's shown shows an entry door into the mudroom and allows them also to leave the house directly into the backyard. There was no door prior. This home is a non-conforming structure for the zone that it's in. It's 65 foot was the existing setback of the dwelling from the rear yard line. We're asking, after this addition, now that pre-exists, is to reduce the rear yard from 100 feet to 75 feet at the closest point of the addition, which is the left side of that addition where the door was shown. This certainly hasn't produced any uncharacteristical change to the neighborhood. This addition was built approximately the year 2000, with the dates on the drawings. They did not apply for the permit. I don't know why. They are in the LWRP and DEC areas. They do not require LWRP relief, but I have made an application to the DEC. The requested variance is not substantial when based upon the fact that the dwelling itself was only 65 feet at the closest point to the rear yard as a non-conforming structure, and certainly has no adverse impact to the neighborhood. While the difficulty was self-created, it is not a determinative factor, and unfortunately, certainly didn't even understand that they were in the DEC region, much less the LWRP region. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? You have a motion to close the application, please?
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Good evening.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18142, Leo and Kathleen Schroeder, 42 Executive Drive, Hauppauge, the location of the property, the south side of Executive Drive, 100 feet west of Holiday Park Drive. The property is zoned R10. Thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance to decrease the minimum setback of a proposed 24-inch high retaining wall from the property line from 3 feet to 0.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Leo Schroeder. I reside at 42 Executive Drive in Hauppauge, and the purpose of the request for this variance is to replace an existing retaining wall that was made out of railroad ties that has disintegrated over the years. It was in place before I bought the house, and so I seek to replace it with stone material.
And it's going to remain at 2 feet?
That's correct. It'll be the same size it is now.
Right. Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Okay. All right. Ladies first. Come on up. If you could just sit down for a second, please. Picture.
Want the pictures?
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you both going to speak?
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Oh, okay. I need you to, excuse me, state your name, spell your last name, and give me your address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Dolores Riley, R-E-I-L-L-Y. I reside at 47 Cardinal Lane, Hauppauge, New York.
I'm Denise Massimo, M-A-S-S-I-M-O, and I reside at 45 Cardinal Lane, Hauppauge, New York.
Okay.
So we wanted to first get clarification on where this wall is. Is this the retaining wall that currently exists between our property and theirs? Because there is... Oh, no, so it's the side.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't know where the retaining wall was, and we came to find out.
It's on the side.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
it's only 2 feet high. And from the pictures, it's deteriorating, so the gentleman just got to replace it.
Just so you know, the retaining wall that's on my property currently, it's collapsed on my property. Oh, that's not you. Okay, maybe we have the wrong house. All right, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to come up, sir?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Murray Welch. I reside at 55 Holiday Park Drive, Hauppauge, New York.
Could you spell your last name, sir?
W-E-L-C-H.
Thank you.
Like grape jelly. I've been living in the town of Smithtown for my whole life, 60 years, and specifically in Hauppauge for 37 years. I'd like to say, first of all, make sure for the record, Kathy and Leo are wonderful neighbors, and I have nothing at all negative to say about them. They are very nice people. So this is nothing personal, it's just all about the facts. The side of their house is adjacent to the side of my garage, which is a legal garage that I had built. And they are the fourth homeowner in that home behind my house. I live on a corner, which is basically 2 front yards. The third homeowner prior to them constructed a landscape tie retaining wall and brought in yards and yards of soil. In fact, I had mud running into my driveway for days. They did this without permits or variances. The grade was brought up from a sloping natural ravine from the side of their house towards the side of my garage. Again, they probably figured to do this so they could have some additional ground level off to the side of their driveway to go to access their backyard. This was all self-created by that prior homeowner. My legal garage has all meets all the zoning requirements. I made sure I was well within the lines of the property. Well, let's fast forward to what Mr. and Mrs. Schroeder are here for. I would say approximately 2 years ago, almost to the date, Leo and I happened to just say hello one morning, one afternoon, and 2017, and he requested my help and possibly my son's help to do some maintenance to this very badly disrepaired retaining wall that was, put in by the prior homeowner. He told me that he was having materials delivered that weekend. And I said, whoa, 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 wait a minute, that's a little too fast. You're asking for my help, but you're telling me that materials will be delivered. I queried Leo as far as what he plans on doing, and he said, well, all I'm doing is the top surface, meaning as you look flat down at it. And at that point, I was somewhat taken aback. I said, well, what about the side? I got the aesthetic view of that side. It's almost like looking at the better side of a fence or the worse side. And I didn't think that was very neighborly for him to say, I'm just doing the top. And I was taken aback. I then questioned him as far as, what about doing the whole thing? And he said that would be very costly. Would I like to chip in? I'm like, this is not my retaining wall. Shame on me once. It was snuck in by the prior owner. I don't think I should be paying for something that's not mine. Again, I have no problem at all if he wants a retaining wall. It's, but the main thing is, it would have been nice if we had some discussion. At that point, I then went to the last question. I said, I know you had some other issues as far as property lines. Do you know where the property line is and where the retaining wall is? And he kind of skirted the issue and minimized it. And again, I was very taken aback as a good neighbor. And these are all facts. Then at that point, I said, okay, how do I do this gingerly, not me be the bad guy? I spoke with my wife. I said, honey, we were snookered once. They're nice people. How do we fix this? This is not my regulations. These are the town's. So at that point, my wife and I contacted the engineering department, just asked what are the regs, and whatever they are, we'll follow, and they'll follow, hopefully. We informed Kathy, who then called the town herself, and there was conflicting information. At that point, we went back to the town and asked, what is the true regulations? And obviously, the communication was clarified, because that's why they're here today. So the structure is in very bad disrepair, and I know prior to them, there was infestation of rodents and stuff like that. He knows it needs to be repaired, but it was somewhat ashamed that just to do the top surface and leave me the ugly side that's rotting below it, the next 3 levels, let's say You know, the top surface is this much, the rest is 2 feet to the ground, even though, again, it's only 2 feet. So presently, you know, the one thing that was missed here, and this is really the biggest part that was my most concern, was the last issue. When I asked them about, I noticed you had a survey done, do you understand where the property line is? And again, somewhat evasive. The answer I got was, oh, it's not much, but yes, it's over your property line. And at that point, I said, okay, enough's enough. If it's over my property line, you need to do what's right. So I questioned why today there's a variance that they're going for, where previous they were not, until they understood the rules. But nowhere in the variance does it mention that it's already over my property line. So what I'm asking the town to do is just whatever the regulations are, if it does go to 0 feet and you grant that variance, I'd like to know what type of structure, at least as a neighbor, and what it's going to look like. I think I'm being very reasonable. As well as, I'd like to have a survey done and have to know where the property line is, so I don't get snookered a second time.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have pictures if you need more pictures.
Anyone else? No? Would you like to come back? Sure.
So to address Mr. Welch's concerns, as I'd stated, the intent is to replace the entire retaining wall with stone, not just to replace a piece of it with more wood, right? So that's what the variance request is for, and that's, I think, been stated. I think we provided some materials summary. And as far as the accuracy of the property line, we did have a surveyor come out and put a 3-foot spike of steel in where the property line is near the street, and put a stake into the railroad tie, which is the property line at the railroad tie, and the spike is in the middle of the property line, in the middle of the railroad tie, which to my understanding means it's on the property line. And the rest of the railroad ties actually askew towards my side of the stake that the surveyor put in the ground.
All right. But you are replacing the entire retaining wall
That's correct.
with a stone one?
Yes.
Well,
We have quotes that I can give you for it.
One of the things is that we, as a board, are only able to grant to 0, not past 0. Essentially, if you can picture that property line as just that, a line, anything on his side of that line would be his property, anything on your side of that line would be your property. So obviously, this board, should we grant it, can only grant to that line. So the requirement would be that whatever you put back would have to be on your side of that line.
Okay, so just to be clear, right, the retaining wall, the stone itself, say it's 6 inches
The
wide.
face of the stone.
The entire 6 inches is on my
Exactly, the
side.
entire stone needs to, the face of it, if we grant it to 0, the face of it can be at 0, but nothing past that.
Understood, yeah. And the quotes we had, requirement to dig out about a foot behind it and put drainage gravel back there, so that's not a problem.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Planning, anything? No? All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
Second?
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Blaine.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18143, Glen Nets, 161 Southern Boulevard, Wisconsin. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Southern Boulevard and Hearthstone Lane. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard on Hearthstone Lane from 45 feet to 9 feet for a proposed 183 square foot covered porch, 200 square foot two-story addition, and 158 square foot second floor addition. Reduce the minimum front yard on Hearthstone Lane from 45 feet to 30 feet for a 70-square-foot covered porch, reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 5 feet for an existing 612-square-foot detached garage with attached 294-square-foot shed.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Tom Trufaro, 1165 Broadway Avenue, from DTT Designs.
One
Yes.
second. Do you have power?
Yes.
Could you hand the power of attorney
Yes, I
in?
did. It's in there. It's the,
And the cards?
vanilla.
This is for the prior case. I don't think anybody handed me anything prior to the meeting started.
I put it with the packet, I'm sorry, should have separated it. It's not in the yellow form. I apologize.
No. So, okay. And that's all you?
Yeah, there's one more page. Same color.
That's not it. I'll take a look for it.
Yeah, it's manila
That's
color.
that's fine.
Oh, here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
All right, good evening. Could you state your name, spell your last name?
Sure,
And give the
Tom.
address, please?
Trifaro, Trifaro. And my name's, Tom Trifaro from DTT Designs. And I worked on the drawings. I worked with Vincent Lucarelli Architects. I'm representing Glenn Netz today. He had to be with his daughter tonight. So I'm here just to explain what we have to do. So the variance would not produce any hardship. The addition will line up with an existing structure. Front yard is equal to 9 foot existing. There was a new subdivision added to the north. This was actually at one time a side yard, which became a front yard. The request is not substantial. It will follow the same line of the street, and we're only building an approximately 7 by 14 addition to fill in like a rectangle, to complete the rectangle of the house. Aesthetically and structurally, it will be better solution and design, and the variance would not cause an adverse effect on the environment because the same construction materials will be used that was used prior, and they're all large trees that act as a buffer on the north side of the property, which I'm sure the board saw. And the structure was there for many years and was, I don't know, it looked pretty unsafe to me, but by building the structure to line up with the second floor, adds structural integrity and will not encroach any more than it did before, than when it did exist before. So it's nice, it's lined up with the street. So
Okay.
we're only adding like an approximately 7 foot by 14 foot, just to keep it straight.
Right. You're not changing the footprint at all?
The footprint, the only way it's changing is, we're not encroaching anymore,
Right,
but we're
you're
just
filling in.
filling it in. Exactly, exactly.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
One second. Anyone
Sure.
on board have any questions?
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on the application? Okay, would you take a seat,
Sure.
please? Come on up. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Scott Turano, Turano, residing 7 Hearthstone Lane, Nesconset, New York, 11767. So my only question is actually a point of clarification. The property right now is a driveway. The driveway goes to 161 Southern Boulevard, right? So the driveway is Southern Boulevard. My clarification is that part of this request, is it to now put the driveway opening onto Hearthstone and close off that location on Southern? And I couldn't quite understand it from the information that I was given.
It doesn't appear to be, but I'll bring him back to answer it. I think there's another gentleman. Why don't we get all the questions and then we'll
Okay.
give the answers?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening. Vince Berger, 163 Southern Boulevard.
Could you just spell your last name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Burger?
Thank you.
I saw on the application the garage being to my property line 7 feet. And I understand that that garage has been around since 1940s, you know, so that was fine.
Talk to this board,
Okay, I'm sorry. The other thing that was on there, that it addressed a shed that was 5 feet away from the property line. And as far as I know, Al took care of that many, many years ago when he subdivided his property. In fact, there is no shed on the property today. So I just want to make sure that a shed doesn't pop up,
Okay.
you know, in the future.
Sure.
Okay?
Right,
Thank you.
All right, you want to come back? Sure. First question was about changing of the driveway?
Yes,
With an
they-
entrance onto,
They would want to
Parking?
change, they would want to change the driveway to go in the short way because, and it's a lot more safer pulling inside of a road and, you know, exiting that way instead of pulling onto a main road. So that would be something that he would like to do. And as far as the shed, he's correct, there is no shed at all.
but we're not here talking about the driveway tonight, right?
No, we're not talking about the driveway
No, so
tonight.
you're going to have to,
Just the house,
you're going to
right?
have to file for a curb cut and all that stuff.
Right, exactly, exactly.
We're just here for the house tonight.
For the house tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you.
That's,
Right, okay.
okay?
Okay, you got it, thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18144, Artis Senior Living, 1131 Jericho Turnpike, Comac. The location of the property is the north side of Jericho Turnpike, 774 feet east of Kings Park Road. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the height of fencing from 6 feet to 8 feet for proposed 8-foot fences.
What this is. Is there only one of these? Okay. You want to see this?
So I can just look at this.
You want to see this one? Okay, let's see if that's a site.
Yes.
There's only one site plan?
Yes.
Oh, there was one more.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Stalakis. I'm an associate attorney with Farrell Fritz. We're located at 100 Motor Parkway, Suite 300 in Hauppauge, New York, 101788. And we represent the applicant, Artis Senior Living. With me here tonight also is Dale Koch of Buller Engineering. May I begin?
Yes.
No. Artis is the owner and operator of assisted living communities devoted to the finest level of memory care. Their portfolio includes upwards of 24 assisted living residences nationwide, which are either currently in operation, in the planning stages, or under construction. Their facility care focuses on persons affected by Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Recently, Artis obtained a change of zone and special exception permit and other approvals in connection with building a facility for the memory impaired at the subject site. In tonight's application, Artis seeks an area variance for portions of its proposed fencing. Specifically, Artis seeks to build a decorative 8-foot fence in height where the town code only permits 6 feet pursuant to section 32213A. The reason for the higher fence is threefold: safety and security, privacy, and aesthetics. Until recently, the premises were vacant, overgrown, and undeveloped. They are situated on the northerly side of Jericho Turnpike at 1131 Jericho Turnpike in Comac. If you look through your little booklet here, Exhibit 1 will show a Google Map image of the property in relation to the surrounding sites. The second page of Exhibit 1 is a tax map for reference with the subject parcel highlighted in red. And the third page is a tabloid pullout of a survey of the premises. The property is approximately 1,200 feet west of Syracuse Boulevard and about 800 feet east of Kings Park Road. It comprises approximately 2.5 acres, which are split zoned. The front 300 acres are zoned WSI, wholesale, and service industry, and the rear 50 feet are zoned R10. Exhibit 2 contains a snapshot of the town zoning map with a call out for the premises. Exhibit 2 also contains aerials showing the property. And the last page of that exhibit shows, again, the tax lots with what was once there recently. Exhibit 3 is really what we're getting to tonight. Exhibit 3 contains a pull-out tabloid of the site plan, which is shown up on the board for everyone to see. The proposed 8-foot decorative fence is highlighted in yellow. If it's a little difficult to see, I'll explain where it runs from. It begins on the bottom left-hand corner of the facility, the southwest corner, right where the pointer is, thank you. It runs along the westerly boundary towards the rear yard, approximately 2/3 of the way down the property line. It virtually bisects the property, running across the rear yard, and it connects to the other side, which is an 8-foot decorative fence that runs south along the interior of the parking lot, between the parking lot and the facility, where it connects again to the building on the right side. Exhibit 3 also contains visuals of the fence as built. And although it's described as an 8-foot fence, you'll note that the top approximately 1 foot is a lattice design. Mm-hmm. So it permits light and sight and elements to pass through it, which softens its appearance and reduces any potential impacts to vision, et cetera. To place the subject site into the context of the surrounding area, I've included a number of street views in Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 is effectively a walk down Jericho Turnpike to see what's surrounding the property. We start with a panoramic photograph of 1131 Jericho. Page 2 shows the work is taking place. It's been approved. Page 3 shows the easterly adjacent parcel, which contains a limousine rental service. Page 4 shows the western adjacent parcel, which is a vacant 1.25 acre lot. Page 5 shows the Northgate Shopping Center, which is west of the westerly adjacent lot. And then across the street is a custom pool business, a Tudor Time, and what was once the Courtesy Inn Motel, which is now under development, which is shown in the following page. The next set of photographs show a view of the premises from behind the rear yard, looking south from Sandy Hill Road. You'll see that there is a 6-foot stockade fence that exists currently on the property that runs along the edge of the rear yard. And that 6-foot stockade fence is on top of what's about 4 foot to 6 foot of grading. And you'll notice as you flip through the photographs, you'll get a close-up of how this grading raises and then meets the bottom of the fence. With respect to the specifics of the variance, the request is for the 8-foot fencing as part of the development of the project site. The project, as I alluded to earlier, is a 35,000 square foot assisting living facility for the memory impaired. It's going to host about 64 beds. And as shown in the photographs, construction's underway. Just as a note, Exhibit 5 contains the prior approvals that have been obtained for the project. And as you saw in Exhibit 3, the proposed fence runs from the edge of the facility up around the back and then down again around the side. Notably, the remainder of the fence behind that rear yard bisection is going to be 6-foot stockade all the way to the back. So the 8-foot fence is only, about 2/3 of the fencing for the premises. And as I also said earlier, the purpose of this 8-foot fence is safety and security, privacy, and aesthetics. The most significant aspect of which is safety and security. As part of its care plan, Artis provides its residents with the greatest amount of autonomy possible, which includes the ability to go outside, which is empowering for its residents. It even runs programming outside on nice days. The fence ensures that it will keep the residents of the facility on site to keep everyone safe, and this is particularly important given the location of the property on Jericho Turnpike with neighboring businesses on the side, as well as the parking lot. In addition, the fence serves a privacy as well as an aesthetic component. It provides the residents of the home with privacy from Jericho Turnpike and the surrounding neighbors and businesses, as well as whatever might be developed on the western parcel. It also provides a visual aesthetic quality to the premises, and it shields the residents from viewing the on-site sewage treatment plant, as well as a perspective from the exterior of the premises. With respect to the balancing test and the factors, the benefits to artists include that safety and security for their residents, the privacy, and the enhanced visual aesthetic. These positive effects also benefit the surrounding community and the neighbors for the same reasons. The fence will not produce an undesirable change or detriment to the neighborhood. The fence, for the most part, is well within the premises, and it won't obstruct views. If you look back through the last few pages of Exhibit 4, which shows the view from Sandy Hill Road, which is the residential community directly adjacent to the north, you really can't even see onto the property because you're so low. The variance request is the most feasible method to achieve the objective of maintaining their residents on the site for safety purposes. It's not substantial in that it's, for a fence, the relief sought's 2 feet higher than the 6 feet. The top 1 foot is see-through. It's got that lattice design, softening the appearance, and Artis is complying with the 6-foot requirement for the remainder of its property in terms of fencing. The fence will not present adverse effects to the community or environmental conditions, and although it is a self-created hardship in the sense that it's proposed by the applicant, it only produces positive benefits overall. So I would like to thank the board for hearing our application tonight. I request that this board issue the relief requested, and I'm happy to answer questions or respond to comments, and if Dale has anything to add.
Again, just for the record, this is a 8-foot white PVC fence with a foot of lattice stripping across the top.
Yeah. Oh.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Of course, yeah. Good evening, Dale Koch, K-O-C-H, with the firm Bowler Engineering. We're located in 2929 Expressway Drive North in Hauppauge, New York. So the fence is a 6-foot-high PVC fence with 2 feet of lattice on the top.
Oh, it's 2 foot away.
Yeah, and then, right? Now I'm questioning myself. Hold on. Yeah. Right, well, with some 6-inch bars that go across the top of it. So ultimately, it's 8 feet high. The top you'll be able to see through it. And then just actually, now that I'm here and I introduced myself, I do think maybe I should touch on a couple things just because of where we are with the application. And I think there's some people in the audience that maybe I can answer a few questions before we get too far into the application. But just to give the board some information and the folks in the audience, so we actually helped Artis pull building permits back in December from the town of Smithtown. They're out mobilizing. During that process, there was a lot of work trying to locate the exact location of all the property lines. That was part of some complaints that were coming from the town based on the limo company next door having a few cars and structures across the property line, and maybe some things that weren't really so pleasant to look at. So we were able to figure that part out. And then while doing that, we also discovered just some discrepancies with the lot lines in the back. And I think this is really important to note because we're talking about the fence and all this stuff. So there is a 6-foot-high stockade fence in the back, and there's a row of evergreen trees that go on the north side of that fence. Those are actually all on the artist property. The original proposal, when we came in front of this board and then the planning board, was to ultimately remove those and put the new fence on our property line. Artist has conceded to leaving the fence where it is today and then also those evergreen shrubs. And about 4 or 5 months ago, we went through the process of getting a site plan amendment with the zoning board, with the planning board. So just, just to make it clear, that fence along the northern property line that's there today should stay throughout all of construction. And, you never know what happens. They could hit it with a machine or something along those lines. But the intention is to leave it where it is today, which is a little bit onto the artist property, which you can see on the site plan under tab 3. I just think while we're talking about fences, it's important to note that. And then just the construction process has now started. They've started installing foundations and prepping the site. And if any of the residents or folks in the audience or the board themselves, we're looking at about a 12 to 14-month timeline for construction. But really a lot of the site work and the things that would be notice to the residents should be done by the fall time when they hope to have the building enclosed and start really just doing all their interior work. So really the construction that would create any outside noise and dust and stuff like that should be wrapped up by September, October.
And the fence on the east and west side is really a buffer from the commercial property that's there.
Correct, yeah. The intention is to just put a 6-foot-high stockade fence for most of the property, really just buffering things, buffering the site and the sewage treatment plant there. But then closest to the building, as we were mentioning before, it's just very important to artists to have certain levels of security, and that 8-foot-high fence really helps just with the residents and feeling safe and secure inside that space.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I think people want to talk, right?
Yeah, well,
Oh.
we haven't talked
Oh,
about
no?
Planning?
Just one question. I haven't noticed that there's a landscape plan associated with the proposal for the 8-foot-high fence. Is there a proposal to landscape in front of the fence in order to, I guess, beautify it a little bit so that it's not quite so obvious? 8-foot-high fences are not common in town. So, if the board were to consider approving it, is there a way that you're planning on screening it with landscaping?
Yeah, I mean, the original proposal really had a lot of just grass area and low shrubs, but if there was something in particular that the board wanted for us to screen that fence, I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. I mean, the whole entire site is screened from the residents along the back. Like I said, those big evergreen trees are going to stay. And then as you're driving down the road, there's a lot of landscaping along the front, within the front yard. And then along the fence, there's sporadically some trees and shrubs, but I mean, there's nothing truly defined. But I would say while you're driving past, the chances of you seeing this fence from the street are going to be minimal. I mean, there's a small window in between the landscaping and the eastern property line where you have your driveway. And then there's a small window as you pass again with your, at the driveway on the western side of the site. And there are small pieces of the fence that run parallel to the road. The rest is really going up vertically along the side of the building and then along behind, essentially behind the building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard in this application? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Fred Kleeman, K-L-E-E-M-A-N. I live at 38 Sandy Hill Road, Comac, New York. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at Pinewood Estates, which is at the rear of their property. My questions are, is there going to be a fence put up separating us from their waste management system? Because their waste management system is going to be in the back of the property. We were wondering if they're going to be putting up a fence there, not counting on our existing fence. because if our existing fence came down or broke, then there'd be nothing there protecting the area. Secondly, they also had said when they originally went for the variance on the property, which is zone residential in the back there, that they were gonna do additional landscaping so that we wouldn't be able to see their waste management from our property. Now, it's true, like he said, there is a big berm that separates it, but you can still see, like right now, we see the construction going on, we see the top of the trucks. We're going to see, when all the construction is done, we're going to see their building, and we don't want to see or smell that waste management system. Are they going to put up any fencing behind our property, or actually in the back of their property?
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, please.
Murray Welch, 55 Holiday Park Drive, Hauppauge, New York, 11788. First of all, Blaze Donato, thank you very much for giving me a copy of this. I just have a couple quick
I need
questions.
it back at the end of the hearing, but that's okay.
What's that?
I need it back at the end of the hearing.
Oh, is there any way I
Yeah.
can obtain a copy?
You can certainly ask the gentleman sitting
can I
there.
get a copy of this? Okay, I just want to make sure it happens because it's very informative to me. I just want clarification on the fencing on the whole west side. That's what I'm basically trying to understand. If you could clarify for me the fencing there, as well as, I think there might be a misunderstanding between the picture or, as these gentlemen mentioned, that there's a 2-foot lattice, because the picture, that is clearly not 2 foot. But again, I don't care if it was 6-foot lattice, but that looks a lot less than 2 feet, according to the picture. So if you could just clarify. Again, I don't care about that. All I care about basically is the west side fencing, to understand where the 8-foot starts and stops and what's at the other end of each side going out towards from the very far north to the south.
Okay,
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
thank you.
Ladies.
Anyone else? No? Would you like to come back and?
With respect, John Stalakis, with respect to the lattice, the stockade fence detail shows that at the very top, there's the supporting slat. It's 3.5 inches. There's the same thing at the bottom of the lattice, 3.5 inches, and it looks like the lattice itself is about 9 inches.
All right.
So the lattice itself is almost a foot, and then you just have the cross beams above and below it.
I apologize. I was wrong. I thought that the lattice in the middle was 12 inches, but, and then just to walk through the sewage treatment plant a little bit, because I know that's always an area of question. So there are a few structures that show up on our plan, but one of them is actually completely underground. We just, by way of going through the approval process with the Suffolk County Health Department and working through everything and making sure that we show and represent everything that's going to be on site. We did show that the main concrete structure that is there is underground. So that part of the sewage treatment plant you won't see. There is a building, which if you look at the plan, there looks like there's that little cul-de-sac area. Directly to the right is going to be a building. It's going to look as if it was a shed. The hardy plank siding is going to match the landscape features of the artist building itself. And then there are some other components directly to the, let's call it the west of the end of that cul-de-sac. Those components that are above ground will have their own fence. The purpose of that is not only for screening, but an ability to lock out and keep those areas protected. I mean, we don't want people just showing up to the site, walking on and being able to go and access the components for the sewage treatment plant. So they will be protected by a fence. So really, there'll be a small building. It'll match the aesthetics of the artist building itself. I don't think you want to put a fence around that. And then the other components, they're small, but there will be fencing around them that are shown. It's shown on the plan there, and it'll be a 6-foot-high fence with some screening.
Okay.
As far as landscaping goes, I was trying to pull up the finalized site landscaping plan so that I could show everyone, because we did do a pretty nice job working with the planning department and really ironing out when we came back in for our site plan amendment. But the idea is that we're going to maintain that fence. As I mentioned before, it's on our property. So there's the 6-foot-high stockade fence up on top of the berm, so really giving a nice screen for the entire property. There's a row of very mature evergreen trees that they've already been staked out, located by our surveyors, and noted to all the contractors that those are to be left to remain. You know, we're not going anywhere near them. And then supplementing on the other side will be arborvitaes and some other landscaping screening that, as time goes on, you know, probably towards the fall, those will be installed, and there should be additional screening on the south side of that existing fence.
That's on your property.
That's on our property. So actually, all the trees and the fencing along the northern property are located on our property.
Right.
But they are being left, as I mentioned, it was important that we leave those older trees, that they've been matured and they provide a lot of screening. And then as far as the fence on the western property line, so starting from the northwest corner, the existing fence actually dives a little bit towards the south of the property. We'll be connecting with that where it meets the property line on the west side, and we'll go down, I'd say it's approximately 50 to 75 feet to a point where we'll convert that fence from a 6-foot-high stockade fence to the 8-foot-high PVC white fence. And then that will travel the rest of the distance to the front of the building. Once we get to the front of the building, the front yard will not have a fence.
So just to clarify, the gentleman's question was, will there be additional landscaping? And your answer is yes, there will be, in the residential area.
In the residential area on the south side of the fence that runs along the back property line from west to east, there will be additional landscaping, yes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. You know, we don't have a sequence, so there'll be no approval tonight. Okay.
Want all these books?
And that concludes our meeting for tonight. Thank you.